Hello, YouTube world. Gordon Causey, as always, and Candy the Wonder Pup, as always, or as most times. Sometimes I give it to her ahead of time, but I think people like seeing Candy the Wonder Pup. All right, sit. Shake a paw. Shake a paw. Lay down. Now speak. 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 All right. More of a chuff. Oh, as always, I'll start out the way I always start out saying, the typical likes, shares, subscriptions, that kind of stuff, what everyone says, ring the bell. Yeah, gives me that little endorphin, that little dopamine rush to the brain that makes me happy. Anyway, I wanted to talk some more about what happened yesterday in Canada wide. Right now, it is Thursday, the 21st of September, 2023. Yesterday, of course, was Wednesday, the 20th of September, when Canada-wide there were a number of marches, rallies. The Million March for Kids, I think, was the branding statement or the label placed on it. And from what I understand, this was initially organized. The impetus for it came from an Islamic group or Islamic individuals, Muslims, but they were joined by different faith communities, people of no faith, those who are opposed to the LGBTQ2IS, blah, 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 blah. I can't keep up with the acronym because it keeps growing. And Canada's own government website. There are websites for the Canadian government that, when listing the acronym, they put a plus at the end and say that it includes a limitless number. Limitless, like there's no end to the number of genders that there are. And I'm 57 years of age. In the eyes of many, I'm old. I'm white. I'm straight. I'm a Christian. So that basically means that my voice, you just shut up and sit down. Anything you have to say gets thrown in the garbage. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I think all opinions, it used to be, and it irritated me, that if an opinion was expressed by someone of a marginalized group, their voice would be diminished. And that I used to speak out against that. Now it's my voice being diminished. But the joys of YouTube, I can go on here and the chat is on. If anyone comes on and wants to put up a comment, I've right now got it on top chat. Let me switch that to live chat, just in case. I don't know what differentiates top and live. I think YouTube decides what. If I leave it on top, then YouTube gets to decide what gets displayed. I want to see it all. I'm something of a free speech absolutist. At any rate, talking about gender or sex, used to be, on applications, it would say sex and you had two choices, male or female, or it might say gender. The words are interchangeable. Sex can have different meanings. Sex can involve an act, but it can also denote gender. But anyway, that's sidetracking. I was writing something out. I don't like reading so much, but I have an issue with this word trans, because just acknowledging the term, it makes it seem like something that is real. And in my world, what is real is that there are two sexes or two genders. There's male and female. You're either born with XX as your chromosomes or XY. And yes, there is an incredibly rare condition, and it's called, from what I understand, the term is intersex. And I think it's less than 1/100th of a single percentage point less than 1/100th%, where an individual can be born with chromosomes that are messed up. It's not XX or XY. They get messed up, and how it manifests is that a person can be born with the inner organs of a female, but with the outer genitalia of a male. And that is a medical condition. And when we talk about this trans stuff, it has nothing to do with intersex at all. Because this whole ideology is that someone who's born XY, someone who's a guy, male, a boy, that they can choose to identify as XX. And then society has to bend over backwards to accommodate this person's identity. And likewise, if it's XX, someone born a girl can identify as XY as a boy. And again, we're expected to bend over backwards. And I know that many more or less blindly accept this notion that gender is not binary, that there are a nearly, like the government of Canada, a nearly limitless number of genders. And I do my best to listen, and I try to walk in the shoes of those with whom I disagree. I try and see things from their point of view. And so to a degree, I do kind of, I think I've got something of an understanding of this mindset again, or at least I think I do. There are some men and boys who are more feminine in their nature. Some guys like to wear dresses. They enjoy it. And that can include boys. So it's, prepubescent. And they're just more comfortable in their own skin, so to speak, when dressing and behaving like what is more broadly in our society viewed as in a female manner. And again, that also applies to girls and women who feel more comfortable dressing in ways that are typically seen as more masculine. Not every girl is a so-called girly girl. And I don't have an issue with that at all. I don't think a lot of people do. Some might, though. And, in fairness, a guy choosing to wear women's clothing and acting and behaving like a woman or a girl, especially, say, a kid who's in middle school, 11, 12, 13 years of age. Oh, geez. That's a recipe for bullying, maybe even physical bullying, assault. And while I don't have any personal firsthand knowledge of it, there's no doubt in my mind it happens. Kids got bullied when I was growing up. I got bullied. There were times, sadly, where I was the bully too. And so I think society has changed. I think we're more tolerant, more accepting, but some things stay the same. And especially in that middle school time frame, there is such a pervasive push toward conformity that takes place. And the issue I have, on the one hand, I would like, if a guy wants to dress up, if he feels more comfortable wearing girls' clothing, I get it. Well, I don't get it personally, but I guess I can, I can see it. There are, in other ways, I've walked outside of the norm. I've gotten out of step with the broader culture too. I think we all have. There are different areas. And the issue comes down to at what point do we draw the line? It's one. And when we talk about things like changing facilities, and I think it plays far more to women and girls, there are women and girls who are uncomfortable with the notion of an XY individual chromosomes being in a changing room type facility with them. And whose rights supersede whose here? Why is the girl being told to just suck it up and be more tolerant and to accept having someone with a penis and testicles sharing a changing facility with them? This is where the rubber hits the road for me. This is where it's gone too far. Likewise, obviously, no one would be surprised to find out that I have an issue with men and boys competing with girls, especially at high end, super competitive. Like there's been a weightlifting events where biological men have competed with women and blown them out of the water. Big surprise. And this NCAA event where some guy put on a women's swimsuit and trashed the competition, denying a woman, a real woman, a place on the podium, something she's worked for her entire life. And now she's, someone who should have won, the woman who should have won gets second place, and someone who should have been up there getting a bronze medal doesn't get anything. I have an issue with that. It's wrong. And there's another aspect to this, and that is studies have shown that especially youth who or don't identify with the sex with which they were born, who identify as some other in this alphabet soup of in this acronym, that they are far more prone to self-harm, suicidal ideation, thinking about suicide, and sadly, ideation sometimes turns into action. The kids do attempt to kill themselves, and that's not good. So how do we address it? How do we mitigate it? Do we have to go so far as to trash all over the rights of women and girls, to take a very small subset of the population and to make them feel included? Do we have to alter the framework of society? And then there's the entire notion now, because it's being normalized, how many boys and girls are going to be embracing this who might otherwise have been perfectly comfortable? Kids like attention. And here's a great way to get attention. Identify as the sex that you're not. And all of a sudden now your social credit score goes through the roof because you're wonderful and woke, and you're a great parent for raising a trans kid. This world's gone crazy, and it's tough to navigate. My youngest, I do have some skin in the game. My youngest is in grade 5, and this past summer he was playing on a sports team, co-ed league. They're boys and girls, and one of his teammates is a boy, XY. And however, the kid has his hair in a ponytail, and it's difficult with his hair in the ponytail, and he has somewhat soft features. He does kind of look feminine, looks like a girl. And with everything going on, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells to a degree, because you can go wrong two ways. You can go wrong two ways here. One, I could, start using gender inclusive language when referring to this other player, but that might offend. I talked to his dad at one point, and I was never sure exactly how to talk. And it didn't help either that the name this child has, I've seen it's something of a gender neutral name. I'm not going to say the name, but there are names like Leslie and Sandy and um, Sydney. There can be boys or girls, and so actually, I just saw the same individual today at an event, and the ponytail that was being worn was pink, the little scrunchy type thing holding the hair back, and it may. I'm not an individual who wants to offend, not intentionally. Well, I should qualify that. Sometimes I do, but typically speaking, in social interactions, no. Especially when it's just an event. But this whole debate is. It would be nice if we could have a discussion on it. But what I saw in Ottawa and Toronto and Victoria and all across Canada, the videos I've seen, I myself did not go to any of the events. I live in a very small rural area, and when I checked to see where the closest one was, the nearest one was over an hour away, an hour's drive, and I was working, so that made it problematic at best, impossible at worst. And then I later found out that morning that there was an event about half an hour, 40 minutes away, but by that, then it was too late. And besides which, I'm not too big on rallies and crowds and marches and that, because what I find happens is it just becomes a shouting match and no one listens to each other. There's no discussion, no opinions are changed. What I saw in an event in Ottawa was, on the one side you had the protesters screaming, protect our kids, or protect, or something, a slogan around that. Leave our kids alone. That was it. Leave our kids alone. Leave our kids alone. And on the others, the anti-protesters were screaming, no room for trans hate, no room for trans hate. Just two groups screaming at each other. The one positive aspect I saw to that is that there's a prevailing narrative in the broader culture. And when I say the broader culture, I mean in the digital world, in the media. The media has done a great job of normalizing what I view as the abnormal. But they've done such a fantastic job with this Dylan McIlvaney guy who was on the Bud Light can and such. They present this as being, and now we have news organizations. They refer to the Undersecretary of Health in the U.S., this guy who dresses up, and they refer to him as she and her. They use those pronouns for this guy. And so there's this, it creates this impression that, well, this is the way it is now. And if you're, if you're up with the culture, then you go along with it. And I think a lot of people have stood back and gone, really? It just doesn't seem right. And then they see an event like today and they say, okay, I'm not alone. There are a lot of other people who have issues with this as well. So the media is lying to me. The digital culture, the tech giants are lying to me. And yeah, they are. Like we saw what happened when Bud Light put Dylan McIlvaney on their beer cans in his little getup. Is what happened is Bud Light sales tanked, and they lost, I don't know how many billions of dollars off their share price. Same thing with Target. All of a sudden their store sales went way down. Their share price, I think it lost 14 billion with a B. And so, but at the end of the day, it's not productive if we just scream slogans at each other. I would love to see someone to get into a dialogue about this. And can we find a happy medium? Can we find a point where we say, okay, look, we're not going to let guys compete against women. That's not fair. But bullying some guy because he likes to wear a dress and acts in a feminine nature, he shouldn't be beat up for it. You know, can we find a happy medium? Unfortunately, I genuinely think that it's next to impossible. And because ultimately, this is a Marxist agenda. And Marxism is all about struggle, class struggle. You know, history is a class struggle. It's a political struggle. Everything's a class and political struggle. And that is the core basis foundation of Marxist ideology. And so that ideology has to find its way into everything. And now it's found its way into the gender issue. It's a great way to divide the population, get everyone fighting with each other. Classic Marxism. And this idea that this class political struggle contends that in the entire Western world is a patriarchal system, and that these gender roles have been imposed by this patriarchal this patriarchal oppressive system. And so we need to blow up the system. And what that does, if you look at how it manifested in the Soviet Union, if you look at how it manifested itself in China, they called it Mao and the biggest mass murderer in world history. Divide and conquer the population. They called it was branded, this cultural revolution is one term used. In China, they referred to it as the Great Leap Forward. Nice. Or are you against a giant leap forward? Are you you don't want to progress? This is progress. We're leaping forward. And look how it manifested itself. Look at the draconian system that exists within China today. And believe me, that's the intent. That's where all this is coming from. And it's a debate that we know. This debate didn't happen organically. It was imposed from outside. It was imposed. It started in our academic institutions by especially in the humanities and the liberal arts, by individuals who adhere and embrace Marxist ideology. And so they brought it into the school system. And from there, it is just spread. And holy Hannah, and that's why I don't think it's ultimately resolvable, because the forces behind pushing this agenda are going to keep pushing it. And we've got to push back. I mean, there's so much, but the problem is, in this world, there are so many issues with which to deal. I've made my views on this channel known far and wide, how I feel about masking and the COVID jabs. I'm an anti-masker. I'm unjabbed. And someone will then you're against science. You're anti-science. No, I'm pro-science. And it's because of science. You can check back my previous videos. You want to wear a mask? Go ahead. Just don't force it on me. You want to come out, you want to rush a vaccine through development and ignore long-term safety and let people choose to get it, fine, but don't force it on people. And anyway, I'm digressing off the topic of this video. But, climate science, I'm also counter to what we're told, instructed, programmed to believe. I believe that the degree to which human activity impacts climate is negligible at best, and that climate changes. We all know climate changes, always has, always will, throughout planetary and human history. We have cycles of warming, cycles of cooling. Go back to the year 1000 forward. We've gone through period. We went through a warming period, a cooling period. Now we're in a warming period. And I have no doubt that eventually another 50 to 100 years, we'll enter a cooling period. Cyclical. How much is human activity affecting it? In my opinion, non-expert, minimal, but there are experts who share my view. Science is not a vote. Consensus science is put forward when the science can't reach a conclusion, when science is unable to provide empirical evidence supporting something, then politics enters and they call it consensus science. Well, the consensus is, science isn't about consensus. Science is about empirical fact, truth, data, and it evolves. Anyway, enough. Thank you for watching. God bless. And again, if you think I had something worthwhile saying and you think I expressed it decently, I know it wasn't the best, but I do these off the cuff. You're welcome to subscribe to the channel. I put these out every now and again. And you're welcome to share if you want. Anyway, God bless. Keep well. And we'll see you again in a day or two.